Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Ah man, here we go again. It's yet again another segment of everybody who has a different opinion than me is clearly a racist, as NBA legend, arguably the greatest basketball coach of all time, Phil Jackson simply speaks his mind on the current state of the NBA, specifically the political activism that took over the league post-2020 BLM riots. Well, his opinion wasn't undying support of every leftist slogan and cause. And what happens when you don't give in and become a social justice bot, blindly following all the sloganeering, all the rhetoric, all the policy, all the shouting? What happens when you're a little bit indifferent, have a slightly more nuanced opinion? Well, you become public enemy number one. You're a racist, yada yada yada. Another ridiculous story. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so let's first start off with the clip. It was reposted here on Twitter by Robbie Starbuck, who writes, Phil Jackson, widely seen as the greatest coach in NBA history, says he doesn't watch the NBA anymore because of all the political slogans introduced in 2020. He's not alone in this. My oldest daughter and I used to love watching, but it got too political to watch. Take a look at the clip.
Do you still watch a lot of basketball or?
No, I don't.
Tell me about that. When and did you stop immediately from the time you stopped coaching?
No, I didn't. I watched some of the game evolve and decided, and they went into the lockout year and they did something that was kind of wanky. They did a bubble down in Orlando, and all the teams that could qualify went down there and stayed down there.
No audience.
And they had things on their back like, justice and, I made a little funny thing like, Justice just went to the basket and equal opportunity just knocked him down. And somebody, I had another name for a guy who has jersey in the back of a jersey, had some other slogan. So my grandkids thought that was pretty to play up those names. So I couldn't watch that. And the Lakers won, actually. They won that year. And
do you feel like it just made little of the game, like it made it like a sideshow? What do you think it was that turned you off?
Well, it was they even had slogans on the floor, on the baseline. It was catering. It was trying to cater to an audience or trying to bring a certain audience into play. And they didn't know it was turning other people off, People want to see sports as non-political.
Now, any normal, rational human being would listen to what Phil Jackson is saying and say, you know what, I see his point, I get it, whether I agree or disagree, that's his opinion, not a big deal, and just simply move on. Emotionally unscathed, emotionally undamaged. Leftoids, however, well, it's a little bit of a different reaction. As you might expect, Phil Jackson is apparently now the worst human being on planet Earth. And public figures, former NBA hoopers like Jalen Rose, are really unhappy with Phil Jackson.
You can't make this up. Hall of Fame coach and 11-time champion Phil Jackson claims to have stopped supporting the NBA because it became too political when it went into the bubble and was catering to certain audiences by putting slogans on the back of jerseys and Black Lives Matter on the floor. The same Phil Jackson that won championships with some of the greatest black athletes in the history of the game. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, made millions on their backs and off their sweat equity. You're sitting up watching a game with your grandkids and y'all think it's funny when justice passes the ball to equal opportunity? When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. So stop watching forever.
Now, like usual for most of these leftoid activists, a whole lot of words, not really saying much. But the little bit that I am gathering from Jalen Rose's incoherent ramblings really isn't very convincing at all. He tries to reduce Phil Jackson as simply being carried off of players' quote, sweat equity. But as anybody who follows sports knows, the coach is one of the most important pieces to the whole puzzle. There's a reason why Phil Jackson has won so many championships with different teams. There's a reason why we keep seeing teams just stacking lacking superstars like the Brooklyn Nets recently, but having the most stars on your team doesn't necessarily equate to winning a championship or even really performing that well in the playoffs at all. But diminishing Steven Jackson's career wasn't the only cringe attack from Jalen Rose. He also then tries to use players themselves as proxies to attack Phil Jackson, to which my reaction is, who does this guy think he is, speaking on behalf of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and others? You know, it's kind of funny because you could pretty much instantly debunk the angle that he's coming from. He invokes the names of Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal. My instant reaction to this was, didn't Michael Jordan refuse to get political back in the 1990s because he said, quote, Republicans buy sneakers too? I feel like Michael Jordan would probably agree with Phil Jackson that basketball, sports should be about sports and not pushing leftist activism. Not to mention he very conveniently omitted Dennis Rodman. You know, Dennis Rodman, avid Trump supporter, literally wears a Make America Great Again hat in public. I wonder why that is. I mean, based on Jalen Rose's response, based on the take that we're seeing from leftoids, you would think that Phil Jackson said or did something racist. He didn't. He simply said that he found it was empty pandering, which clearly it was. That's exactly what it was. That the whole thing was kind of unserious, and that it was dumb and funny that the sportscasters during the games were kind of feeding into it with racial equity, driving to the hoop, and justice for all, blocking the shot. I mean, is it just me or was that objectively funny? If anything, Jalen Rose is proving Phil Jackson right, going on and on about partisan politics, acting like another hive mind cult member. You know this, Jalen Rose, what you're doing right now is exactly what Phil Jackson's talking about. He just wants to watch basketball, not get lectured by some half-witted athlete with no actual education or knowledge on these topics. You know, most people don't want to subject themselves to the torture of sitting through a Jalen Rose lecture. Completely absurd, and he doesn't realize how ridiculous he sounds, especially after all the BLM controversy. Oh, well, there must be something wrong with Phil Jackson having an issue with Black Lives Matter being written on the court. Hello, do you live under a rock? Did you not get the memo, the news that Black Lives Matter was a massive fundraising scam? That the co-founders of the organization ran off with millions upon millions of dollars and bought lavish real estate across the world? And funneled $12 million for legal fees to a Hillary Clinton-connected law firm? You must be living under a rock. Phil Jackson said and did nothing wrong. In fact, he represents a good chunk of the population, myself included. I love basketball as a sport. I grew up playing in leagues. I would spend the entire summer, every single weekday going to basketball camp. I can't watch the NBA anymore. Why? Because I have a sour taste in my mouth. Watching the Milwaukee Bucks boycott a game, refuse to play because of Jacob Blake, a man harassing and assaulting his baby mama, who had a restraining order on him, supposedly or allegedly trying to kidnap the children from her, pulling a knife on police officers, and then, well, meeting his fate. Well, excuse me if I found that distasteful and frustrating. Excuse me if I have an issue with the NBA aligning themselves with BLM, an organization that siphoned hundreds of millions of dollars off of black issues and then funneled that money to their own net worth into the Democrat Party. My apologies, Jalen. I guess I'm just not as educated and woke as you are. He makes the claim that Phil Jackson has a problem with equity and justice for all. Yeah, I'm sure we're seeing a whole lot of justice as a result of BLM activism. Look at the harm that BLM activism has caused, defunding the police. Look at Chicago, look at New York, look at California, St. Louis, Philadelphia, the list goes on. Phil Jackson is right. But of course, like usual, these cultist leftoids literally cannot see past the slogan. Oh, but the slogan says Black Lives Matter. Anyone who disagrees with it must be a bigot or a terrible person. BLM has done nothing for the black community. And leftist activists, the Democrat Party social justice warriors, claim that Black Lives Matter, but they don't give a damn about the major increase over the last 2 years in black-on-black shootings, all the homicides. In other words, Democrats don't care about black life, very simply. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.